Welcome to the Church Safety Guys broadcast with hosts James McGarvey, Paul Buckner, and Mike Scully. Together, they make up the Church Safety Guys. Their mission? To equip, train, and disciple church safety teams. Join us for the next hour as we talk about all things church safety and security. Don't forget to like our Facebook page, join one of our church safety and security communities online, and share this broadcast with your church.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Sunday night evening broadcast of the Church Safety Guys. I am James and I am joined by my cohort and friend, partner in crime, Mike Scully.
Hey guys, how are you, James?
I am doing good, I think. Everything's running. The internet hasn't crashed. We're having a good night. So
it is. Don't jinx it.
That's all. Yeah, I probably just did. So if you're joined, if you joined with us on Facebook, feel free to jot down and write what church you're with and where you're listening from. And then if you happen to follow us at a later time on YouTube or one of our podcasts, feel free to like and subscribe on that or click on that button on the lower right-hand corner. And that helps us out and sends you updates as well. As always, you can always visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com and check out our resources on that page. And so this evening, we got a couple of fun things I want to mention real quick. So for those of you that are interested, I know usually every year I try and get my team. As always, you can always visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com. Something of a gift for the end of the year for serving. And I know a few folks have connected with us and contacted us about getting copies of the devotional. If you have an interest in picking up some devotionals or even making a donation for devotionals, we're still actually giving those away to different police agencies around the U.S. Feel free to visit our website. And if you're interested in bulk purchases, we can certainly help you out with that. They make a great Christmas present. I have my favorite one here. So, you know. Do a shameless plug. So the other cool thing, and I haven't mentioned this yet. So this is the first. So you guys are hearing it before everybody else. But I am actually working on a new book, and that is coming out shortly. Right now, it's kind of at the moment we're trying to get formatting done, and we're trying to get all of the ducks in the row and. Some of the ducks aren't cooperating. But
one way to put it.
Yeah. But the cool thing is this book that's coming out is called A Case for Church Safety and Security. And one of the major things that I think that I've been asked over the years from different churches around the U.S. has been, what can I do? What can I tell my leadership to encourage them to have a church safety team or understand and realize the importance of a church safety team. And so this book is actually a combination. It's about the same size as the book To Protect and Serve. But this is actually a book that goes through the Old Testament and New Testament and actually chronologically records verses and situations, in some cases going back to the original Hebrew and Greek, where God used the idea of watchman or security and that sort of thing. And so there's a little bit of everything for everyone. It's going to be a great book that you can give your leadership and say, hey, you know what? I've been talking to you about a church safety team. Here's some good points. And then it's also written from the aspect of, if you are a church and you're like, okay, so what do I do next? There's some guidelines there to say, okay, this is a real simple, real easy way to biblically support this this ministry and get moving. So I'm looking forward to it. The reviews, I still have a few folks reviewing it. I sent it out to I think 3 or 4 pastors to try and get their input on it as well. And all of the feedback that we've gotten back from it has been astounding. And I say astounding not because that's surprising, but just because the feedback that I've received on it was it's the best one yet. Like, you guys saved, from folks that have reviewed our others, they've said, you guys saved the best for last.
I think this is a bit different though too. We're moving in a different vein, and you're going in a different direction, and the Lord called you to write it from a different perspective than, say, the ones previously. So I can believe that it's better, because it's totally charting a new course.
Well, it is. And it was cool for me. It was fun because when I did the research for it, I went back and without trying to get overly, overly educational, I went back and I had the opportunity to research, the Greek and Hebrew, and learned a lot myself coming out of it, and saying, this is definitely a ministry that churches need to be supporting and certainly doing today. So I think it'll be a good one, but we're still working on the release date. So this is the first time I brought it up, but just to kind of throw it out there and let you all know, that's something we're working on. So other than that, tonight's topic, we're going to talk with John Riley, and he's with Gentle Response. I'm sorry, I'm starting to cough. I'm going to bring him in, and then I'm going to grab a thing of water because I'm choking here. So, hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hey, guys. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks. It's good to be back.
Yeah,
we always love having you on the broadcast, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. Crazy times we're in.
Indeed.
And talking about de-escalate, I'll get right into it. You guys asked me to consider being on the show to talk about de-escalating the holidays and all that. I was definitely happy to do that. And on top of the normal stresses and all that are going on in a lot of families, you've got everything else that's been going on with the elections and so on, and COVID also. So there are some additional stresses. Now, in the years that I was a police officer, it didn't take me long to notice that there was always an uptick in domestic violence calls and so on around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Really unfortunate. So over the last week, I went through my memory banks trying to come up, just think about some things that I would share and pass on to people to try to mitigate and minimize conflict. And after thinking about it, I got nothing. So good night, good luck, folks. No, I'm all right. Just had to throw that in there. Okay. I spent a lot of time remembering some things, and I'll share one story. I don't remember if it actually happened around one of the holiday seasons, but it really shows what can happen in a dysfunctional family. Late one night, Grand Rapids Fire responded to a house fire. It wasn't a big fire or anything, just something small. And, I heard it go over the radio. They respond. And after a while, I'm hearing them call for police backup. And I'm thinking, shoot, something's going on. And then moments later, dispatch is sending me. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, so, this is different. They don't normally ask for police backup. So I'm putting down my coffee cup. I got to brush the crumbs off my uniform. I head on over there. Long story short, what happened was when fire got there, they determined that a lady in the house, a grandmother, but she was in her mid to late 50s. The grandmother had gotten into an argument with her daughter and her granddaughter. As the daughter and granddaughter were asleep, the grandmother went downstairs in the living room underneath their room and piled up furniture and all this kindling and set a fire. She was going to try to burn down the house. with their daughter and granddaughter in the house. And that story or that incident just sticks with me. And I guess I just want to remind everyone that unfortunately we live in a fallen world, and I've seen it. And unfortunately, at a time, the holiday seasons, when it should be a time of family and fellowship and reconnecting and recharging and love and all that, unfortunately, there can be a lot of sparks and problems and so on, just generational curses and just the cycle of dysfunction. And it is possible for people to break away. It can be challenging, but like one of my closest friends in the department came from a very dysfunctional drug and alcohol abusive background. He made a choice for himself when he was younger to go a different route and put himself through college. Now he's a police officer 20 some years in. And some people are able to break away from their family. And unfortunately, sometimes they have to have no contact with their family because of dysfunction or whatever. Others, like my friend, are able to still have contact with their family, but is able to maintain healthy boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy, but it can be done. And once again, I want to remind everyone that there's no guarantees. There's no magic pill. There's no magic word or phrase or something that you can say or do that would just de-escalate people. It's not that easy. So I sat down and as I thought about the hundreds of family situations that I responded to over the years as a police officer, and then even thought about some of the situations that I'm aware of among friends of mine at church. I kind of came up with a decision-making flowchart, if you will. Because there were many times that I responded to a scene and a scenario and a situation, and immediately I was struck with, if one of these people had not bothered showing up at this family gathering, wouldn't be here today. Mm-hmm. And so really the very first question I have on this flowchart, and I call this the Gentle Response Family Holiday Season Flowchart of Risk Assessment Decision-Making Points. Say that 3 times real fast, right?
Is there an acronym for that? Because
I haven't come up with one yet. The Family Holiday Season Flowchart of Risk Assessment Decision-Making Points. Anyway, the very first question you got to ask yourself, do you really have to go? Do you really have to go to this family gathering? Yes, I understand there's some times that you do have to go. Maybe it's Grandma Betty's very last one. I get it. However, assuming you're not the black sheep of the family and the troublemaker, and you're sitting back and you're trying to maintain healthy boundaries for yourself, your spouse, children, and so on, you got to ask yourself, do I really have to go to this family gathering? Maybe I can go the day before or the day after, but that's something, everything is situation dependent. These are just general questions and thoughts that came to me as I was kind of preparing for tonight. After all, if you can avoid conflict, you win, right? There's no stress, no drama, no ripple effect, no problem.
Well, to that point, I just want to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
One of the things I know with churches that we see a lot is, and I'm sure you guys both see this at your church, is the from Thanksgiving to Christmas, it's always challenging because you have the families that are separate, that have separated or divorced, and then new families that are merged in that dynamic and that sort of thing. But one of the things that I've seen a lot of is juggling of 2 Christmases, 2 Thanksgivings, two separate holidays, because in a lot of times, I've joked around about that with people. Oh, you get to have Christmas 2 or 3 times because you've got to go. But when you talk about the dynamics, in some cases, that's really the best, to split things up. And from a church perspective, I know a lot of times, like, we'll do a special church service, and a lot of churches out there might do like a Christmas Eve service or that sort of thing. So from that standpoint, just being alert and just being aware of the the culture of those attending, the environment, everything that's happening. Because a lot of times we've seen families like in my church that are like, oh, let's meet at such and such church. They go to church once a year. They're like, hey, let's meet at this church because we'll get a quick service and then we'll all be there. And all of a sudden, you have two sides of the family that never gets along 364 days a year, but we're putting them in a sanctuary, and that sort of thing. And so I think, one of the things, and again, that kind of goes back to, maybe we can split that up. Do you really need to go with that family, or maybe just make a choice and say, hey, we're going to go to two services. I'll go to this service and that service to make everybody happy. Because making everyone happy when we're talking about holidays, is less stressful, amongst, everything else that's going on. So
that's actually a really good point for the church security teams and ushers and greeters also to be very well aware that you could have a spillover from home to the parking lot to the nursery, daycare, or just in the lobby there between services. Unfortunately, there is going to be somebody, if this balancing act isn't handled very carefully, somebody on one of the families is going to feel offended, and they're going to let that eat at them. At some point, though, you've got to recognize you're the adult now. And yes, I want to see my mom and dad, but it's also right to spend time with your in-laws too, in some way. And maybe, it's time for you and your wife and your kids to develop your own memories and your own traditions too. And I get it. I've seen a lot of situations go sideways because parents continue to try to be very controlling, manipulative with their adult children, and it's just part of that dysfunction. Go ahead.
Well, Mike,
there's a couple. I think to piggyback on some of this stuff, of course, I think the season that we're talking about, we're about to enter. You're right. We're at the point of potentially the straw that broke the camel's back, and that straw could occur in our churches. And so while we want to obviously be better equipped to prepare to face perhaps family members, face those stressors, we've got to understand that it obviously could occur in our church as well. And I think one of the things that I'd like to bring into the home view, as well as what I try to do going into Sunday, is before I literally suit up, if you will, before I put that radio on, before I grab my EDC and everything else, I try to visualize a positive result of our day. Try to say, okay, what does a great day look like? What does an effective result of our Sunday look like? And it's an incident-free Sunday. So if we can do the same thing going into a Christmas, 1, 2, 3, or 4, okay, or more, depending on what that situation is, and first start by visualizing it as a positive, not setting yourself up as a negative walking through the door, because then you'll seek your own confirmation bias of, see, I knew that was going to happen, and immediately set yourself off if you don't start with thinking it's going to be positive. So I think that's the first thing, is start with a positive mindset.
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the biggest points I make towards the end of my lecture presentations and my training seminars, is make sure you have a very positive mindset, because that will help you develop the confidence to handle a situation. If you do find yourself in a situation, you had to have already wargamed in your head and visualize a very positive outcome of handling different situations. For people who have to go to these family gatherings, whether at church or at home and all that, and there's a family member that they just don't get along with, and so on, ask yourself, one of the other self-assessment things is, are you able to avoid contact with the other person without coming across like a melodramatic drama queen yourself, because you're in the corner sulking because you don't get along with your cousin Bobby, and you just going to sulk in the corner there with your arms crossed. You can inadvertently escalate and create that. Everyone will feel your vibes, and so
don't make it about you. In other words,
there you go. Exactly.
Don't make it about you.
Right. But we probably all think of someone. We know someone who just has to make it about them and their feelings and all that, and all of a sudden everyone could potentially get sucked into it. So that's actually one of those other questions. Do you have to go to this family gathering? If you do, can you mitigate contact with this person? But you got to be careful about how you avoid that contact. And then if you are there and all that, remember, you don't have to stay the whole time. You know, this goes back to maybe, okay, hey, mom, dad, I'm glad we had this time, but now I got to go visit the in-laws. Just, you know, just trying to be fair. And so you already have a built-in out per se, so that, you know that if you stay too long, Uncle George is going to start getting inappropriate because he's had one too many eggnogs or whatever. Whatever the dynamics in the situation is. So really, do you have to go? And if you do have to go, can you avoid the other person without looking like a jerk yourself? And if you're able to do all that, just remember, you don't have to stay the whole time. If you couldn't go another time, that's, you can just come up with a way to leave. And this is where I think it'd be very effective if spouses and even children old enough learn how to work together. At some point, you or your wife can come up and say, hey, it's time to go, for whatever reason, before things start getting kind of going sideways, and just work together as a team. A lot of people forget that children are very, very aware of what's going on around them. They're very well aware of issues and dysfunction and so on. And because I've talked to adult friends of mine who tell me and share stories of when they were teens and stuff like that, of recognizing and being uncomfortable at different family gatherings because of a cousin or a grandma or an aunt or whatever. Kids are very, very well aware of that. And so you have a responsibility to keep their mental welfare and spiritual welfare intact and healthy also. If you let yourself stay in a dysfunctional situation and it starts to go sideways, you're exposing your kids to all this, and you can teach them healthy boundaries and all that by just and they're very well aware who the problem people are, I'm sure. Assuming, again, you're not the problem. and it's someone else, so.
What's, one of the things that you mentioned, for crazy situations, always have an out. And, right. The idea of thinking in advance and saying, okay, we're going to use this code word, right, to minimize, okay, you know what, we need to move on. Or maybe, like you said, plan from a home perspective, plan something back to back. If it's not going to be a great situation, but you feel like you have to do it, then plan something else behind it, even if it's just a regular family activity. So then you can say, look, you know what, we've got something else going on. We've got to head to this other event with our family, but, and again, you're not making stuff up. You legitimately have that, but it's also, you're a little bit more in control of the time in the situation. And I think what's interesting is one of the things that, excuse me, one of the things that I've always found interesting is the idea of actually planning what you talk about and kind of throw that out there. And one of the things that I think we could all probably agree on that's healthy not to talk about right now is politics. Politics or religion. And what I find interesting is, and I'm not sure, I think I've shared this with Mike before, but what I find funny is in my family, in my wife's family, when we get together for Christmas or Thanksgiving, we have a Mormon family, a Catholic family, an agnostic family, a Christian missionary family, and a biblical professor retired from Biola. Okay. And
partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, well, it's the start of a good joke, I think, somewhere. But and my in-laws who are believers, but they do their thing. And what's interesting to me is, one of the two topics that we've never had to set boundaries, but we've always respected each other and said, regardless, when we get together, it's family. And the two things that we don't talk about are religion and politics. And, some of you might, if you're listening or watching this at a later time, you might be like, well, I want to witness to those folks. Well, you know what? In that particular situation, there's a time and there's a place for everything. And, with that, I've had more meaningful conversations with the families that I don't agree with fundamentally, because they've respected me and because we've established that respect of knowing, hey, we're not going to talk about this. And if we do talk about it at a later time, it's a casual conversation. Like, my friends or my relatives that are Mormon, they'll come up to me and they'll say, hey, how's your church ministry going? And it's like, well, I appreciate you taking notice and taking interest. And we have discussion about churches. It's not, it's not so polarizing, that conversation, that it's not pleasant. They understand that it's important to me as I do them. And we're respecting each other without trying to cause, any major disagreement. So definitely pick and choose your topics. I'm going to throw it over to Mike because he had some stuff. And then when you wrap up, we'll jump to our quick break. So go ahead.
Well, I think what you said right there, James, is that up front, you're determining that, hey, here's some boundaries. So I think John spoke of boundaries earlier, but I think you're also asking for what you want up front. You're establishing a basis of understanding up front that reduces the chance of the ambiguity, if you will, or should I have gone there or should I not? No, you're drawing a clear boundary. You're setting that guardrail. So I think that's important. You're also being very specific. You're basically saying, no, we're not going to talk about this or this. And I think by being specific, you're allowing a better understanding again up front, which is important. So I think that's really key, not only in the family's perspective, but also obviously at church, is let's be specific with our teams of what we're expecting as leaders. Let's be specific if we're encountering a person that we're trying to have a conversation with. Let's make sure we're specific. Have that conversation, acknowledge, listen, etc., and make sure that we're engaging and not just trying to rush out the room. Because as much as I think it's great setting a timetable to, hey, I got to move on, I got to run to the next house or whatever, that's fine. But then live intentionally in the moment. Don't be watching your watch for 90 minutes. And because that watching your watch could be the escalator that somebody else sets them off the edge. Oh, you're always just trying to leave. Don't do that. Just fine if you have to leave, but try not to be yourself as a trigger.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to take a quick break, quick sponsor break, and then we'll be right back with you guys. So stick with us. If you have any questions or any comments that you'd like us to address, as always, feel free to go ahead and throw that in the comment section, and we will be right back. So hang tight.
With over 50 years of experience with religious and nonprofit organizations, Thomas Alexander Insurance & Associates understands that your congregation is different from a traditional business. We're here to fulfill your needs, coming to you while creating a personal plan for your budget and size. From your local community to around the globe, we are advocates for you. Thomas Alexander Insurance & Associates, your partner in service.
Church Safety Guys is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping equip, train, and disciple church safety and security teams. We are about all things church safety and security, which starts with a ministry mindset and a servant's heart. We are protectors, guardians, ambassadors, and shepherds. We help church and place of worship safety and security teams all over the United States through our broadcasts, online communities, conferences, trainings, resources, and products. Help us reach more churches in impactful ways by considering becoming a monthly ministry partner. $2, $5, $20 a month will help us continue to provide these resources.
All right, so good evening and welcome back to the Sunday night evening broadcast of the Church Safety Guys. And if you are listening to this at a later time, go ahead and click the like and subscribe button on the lower right-hand corner, and be sure to share this broadcast with your church. And for more information, you can always visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com. So tonight we're talking about de-escalating the holidays, and we have John Lee O'Reilly with General Response. And General Response has been a great side retirement venture for him, and we always love having John on the show. And honestly, it's always great talking to you, because the practicality of, you've been in law enforcement for so long, and you can see people at their worst and at their best, and being able to take some of that wisdom and kind of transform it into something useful is always pretty cool. So,
yeah, I was going to say that's totally a God thing, because I was well on my way to do something else, but here I am. Yeah,
man of many talents.
Yeah.
So if you're just joining us tonight, we would love to have you go ahead and list what church you're from, and you can do that in the comments and where you're listening. And then if you have any questions for us as we go through the last half hour of the broadcast, feel free to post those as well, and we'll do our best to get to them. So we were just talking about boundaries and kind of setting up, your expectations for the evening, and Mike, you were mentioning before, you were talking about boundaries and live in the moment, and I think that's important. For the sake of, if we're always so focused on the next thing, then we can't really enjoy, or find some enjoyment in that time and what's physically happening now. And, I know several situations where we've rushed through because of frustrating things going on and dynamics with the family. And then after the fact, something happens, and in some cases that I've heard, individuals haven't had the opportunity to go back and connect with that person. So, an individual that may be frail health or something like that you want to see because it is the last time, or could potentially be the last time, and that individual, honestly, they're going to know if you're rushing it. If you're trying to just say, okay, I'm out of here in 10 minutes, I got to go. That's not really valuing their time or helping the situation. So, but it can definitely get frustrating. I know sometimes my family, half of my family lives in California, and the other half of my family lives in New England. So, and I live in Ohio. So trust me, in the 20 years of my wife and I being married, we've had discussions about who we're visiting over what holiday quite liberally. So,
I reference setting boundaries and so on. And when you have to leave, you've got to remember everyone want to be treated with dignity and respect. And so when you leave, you've got to still honor your parents, your grandparents, and so on. And so you're going to have to use some tact and some de-escalation skills, your tone of voice and the words you use. You don't just go up there and go, well, you know what, I'm out of here because I'm tired of listening to Cousin Bobby or whatever. It's a, you know what, we got something else going on, and this comes into that pre-planning that we talked about, having you and your spouse and if the kids are old enough, just understand that we're going to stay for a little while, but then we're going to go and visit other friends and family or whatever. But yeah, you're going to have to use tact. Otherwise, you're the one who's saying or doing something that could absolutely escalate the situation. And after you leave, the trail you leave behind are all these hurt, offended feelings of the family. Just, again, it kind of goes back to you being melodramatic and making it all about you, looking at your watch. And then finally, well, you know what, I'm out of here. Merry Christmas, everyone, or whatever. But yeah, you're going to have to use tact.
Sure.
So you could set up this, you could have this holiday go south, and now what you've done is you think you're saving yourself by pulling the ripcord, but what you've just done is set up next year's holiday to be worse. Yeah. So understand the setting that the entering and leaving is important. You got to enter on a good note and leave on a good note. You may have a reason to leave, and that leaving may be avoiding it escalating, and that's fine. But do it in a still semi-positive way as best as you can.
And that's absolutely key. Exactly right. Try to have a big picture all the time, because you are going to see your family members again. And this is what I wanted to touch upon a while ago. You made the comment that sometimes people have this desire and I want to witness to these people. That's actually a subject matter that I talk about a lot with the guys at my men's breakfast group and so on. Witnessing does not necessarily mean you have to be quoting scripture or berating anyone about how they're living a sinful life. We most effectively witness to people by simply living it. There are even for myself, when I was growing up, I can tell you, I immediately just start to shut down if someone out of the blue, God bless them for being bold, but anyone right out of the blue, just, hey, do you know Jesus? That doesn't resonate with me. And I just know so many people who've shared with me also that what resonated with them the most, that finally led them to break down and come to God, was just watching someone else, just observing them. And so,
well, and I was just going to say that's relational evangelism. It's building, in a sense, it's building a relationship with that person beforehand. And sometimes we dismiss the opportunity, I think, to build a relationship with our family because we think, okay, we grew up with them, we've been around them for so many years, they know us, nothing's going to change. But I've been to my share of holidays on both sides of my family that I just walked away with a migraine after, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm the black sheep in my family,
right?
But at the same time, it's like, it can be very frustrating. So I don't want it to sound discouraging for someone that's like, well, I'm just going to skip it today or this year because I don't want to deal with that. It can be a very encouraging time, and building a relationship with someone is a great way to do that. But the reality is, if you fail to plan, then what's going to happen? You're going to fail. So going into it at least with a little bit of preparation and foresight to say, you know what, this is how I want this to go down. And regardless of what, Uncle so-and-so says after the third beverage, I'm going to come out of this with a positive attitude, and, we'll just realize that he's just being a dope, and, and kind of go from there. One of the things I did want to mention is what we've seen, and certainly churches can relate to this, is because churches are more, because we have more people that come to church over the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, that don't typically go to a church. One of the things that we've had happen with us is we've had issues and situations where relatives that didn't have even legal connections to the family came to the church and tried to get into our children's department to leave gifts and do different things like that to the grandkids. And we've had two different situations more recently in our church's history where an individual tried to get in, and thankfully our processes and teams were in place and they did not. But that individual had no business, and the parents were like, look, you're doing your thing. I don't want the gift. We've got a restraining order. And this individual came to the church because they knew that the family came and they were like, well, we just want to drop off this present. Here's a present for the child. And that's pretty gutsy. But the fact that somebody can do that just indicates that from a church perspective, and a church safety perspective, we just need to be paying that much more attention to what's going on and realize that there's more people that we don't know that are going to come, and there's more people that have that spillover of family drama that happens with.
I want to remind and encourage people, security, ushers, greeters, and the volunteers in nursery and all that. Don't be so quick to immediately shut off or shut out or disregard someone who may be trying to make amends with that other family member by coming in and leaving a gift for the grandkids or something. I mean, obviously there's so many different dynamics, but what I don't
Sure.
want people to do is just lock themselves into a course of action, which really could be detrimental to some folks who are really trying to make an honest effort. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be here, but I just want to leave a Christmas gift,
Sure.
And yeah,
and that's, it's really at that point, obviously it's the family's choice how they want to, go down that road and handle the situation. But I'm not, and again, I'm not opposed to someone, I've seen as many disruptions due to drama happen and something like that. I've seen the church build bridges with families where they were like, hey, let's, if you want to meet with me, I'm not going to have you come to my house, but I'll have you come to this church service, and then we'll talk after the church service at the church, and then we can both go our separate ways. And whether that's, Mike, I mean, that's in and of itself, but I've still seen God work in that situation through
Absolutely.
the message, where it's been like, those individuals were able to restore the relationship and then move on because that they handled that way. I'm not saying do all your meetings at the church and bring all your drama to the church, for sure.
Well, I said that I said what I did because I'm aware of some people in some churches that I've worked with who seem to feel like they have to take on the role of law enforcement when they have someone come on to the church property who may or may not be in violation of a restraining order or whatever. And it's exactly what you just said. It's up to the family to pursue or do whatever they want to do. But you, as a representative of the church, keep the peace and be a light in the dark area and be welcoming and so on. Just don't immediately start doing or saying something that could just make the church look bad, you look bad, or be detrimental to what these folks are trying to do. It's not your job. You're a civilian volunteer trying to help out the church. And if possible or necessary, you're supposed to de-escalate a situation.
One of the things to your point, John, one of the things that we've done in the past is if a family does have a meeting or a situation like that, or maybe someone comes in and the conversation's tense, a lot of times what we'll do is somebody that knows the family, knows that situation, that is on the safety team, will kind of take a loop by and just say, hey, is everything going all right? Are you guys doing okay? And, oh, yeah, it is okay. And then they'll keep walking. And,
That's critical.
if it gives them their privacy and time, but it also kind of lets everybody know, hey, there's some other folks watching too. And a lot of times those, we've had situations where the church member who was in that discussion, looked up because the conversation was getting crazy, and the safety person was able to come back over and say, okay, let's de-escalate this, and everybody step back, everybody take a deep breath.
Yep.
And so, Mike,
I think we could tie that back into the home situation at the holidays, in that not just having the code word to get out or whatever, but to understand who the other triggers are. If you're at the in-laws and okay, this person tends to be the trigger for your wife, well, then try to help them avoid that situation. Try to avoid the tag teaming that occurs. Well, when those two get together, they tend to up the ante. Well, avoid that. Help put yourself between those situations, just like you would in church, to avoid it from escalating. You can prevent it from even happening. So I think we can take tactics that we have and we use in our churches and bring them into the environments of home, not to be super tactical, but in the sense that we got to understand that we can diffuse by just deflecting, distracting, or being between the situation.
And that's critical, because flare-ups and moments of tension are bound to happen in these families. And what's happened, it kind of goes back to my observations in the first place, that good people end up doing and saying things they don't realize actually escalate the situation. Because as there's some tension between these two people, grandma might suddenly just, I am sick of this. And then she's getting loud. And now, you see what I'm saying? And now all of a sudden, it really sparks things going. And so it really goes back to, if you see a developing stressful situation, all that, exactly right. Making sure you have the right body language and tone of voice and so on to create a distraction and try to start diffusing it. But avoid raising your own voice and saying, hey, you know what? You know that this happens every time you guys get together, because now you're accusatory, antagonistic, confrontational. So, Mike, you're absolutely right. There's going to be some tension from time to time. You're doing the best you can. But if and when you start seeing something between your wife or the kids, because maybe the kids don't get along with their cousins, some type of distraction in a calm, soothing tone of voice. Hey, why don't you, Junior, come on over here and check this out, or whatever, just create that separation, all that, so people can kind of back away from each other and take a deep breath. Because otherwise someone is going to liable get, they're already frustrated because they already sense the tension, and then they end up with an outburst, and then it really goes sideways.
So I want to take it up a notch for a second there, John, and say, okay, we've talked about diffusing, and we've talked about deflecting and some of these smaller things and trying to avoid the flare-ups. Let's fast forward, okay? Let's say it's already started to ratchet up a little bit, and it's starting to get out of control, and let's get to a point of what can people do to avoid the 911 call. In other words, you don't want it to go to that boiling point, and then, don't get me wrong, I'm saying if it gets there, it gets there, and by all means be safe. But a lot of times, I think you don't want the police showing up to Christmas dinner. Okay,
believe me, we did not want to be showing up to this stuff either.
So I guess, John, what would you say when it's reaching close to that boiling point and you don't want it to boil over?
Right. Well, it depends on your role in that situation. If it's a situation between your wife and her cousins and you're observing this, well, this is where you need to try to create that distraction and that separation. If it's between you and your cousin or your grandma or whatever, and you're kind of getting sucked down that rabbit hole, hopefully your wife has the presence of mind and you guys have worked it out. She comes up, tugs on your sleeve to create that distraction. And you need to have the discipline and awareness to recognize my wife is trying to save my butt right now. You need to, and not be kind of looking at her going, you know what, honey, I got this. No, you don't. That's why she's there trying to save your bacon. There's so much. There's no easy answer. There's no one answer to that question, because, again, it depends on where you are in that situation, who you are, your role in that situation, and who the players are that's actually having that confrontation. I get it. We would like to try to avoid calling 911. I mean, if it gets there, it gets there. But believe me, as police officers, I hated going to those calls. I hated them, but I knew it was necessary sometimes.
It's a he said, she said, and it's
Right.
You're just trying to sort that out, and then it becomes this dynamic where you brought a hammer to somewhere that didn't have a nail,
Right.
and they're not there to break out those situations, and I think that's the challenge. It just escalates.
And a lot of these family situations it took years and generations to go sideways, to become dysfunctional. And unfortunately, we get called there when it's people are at their worst and it's really become, going bad. We're not going to solve everyone's problem. And even when we do arrive, we're hoping to just get separated. We're trying to avoid an arrest if necessary. And invariably, I'm asking someone, look, for the sake of keeping the peace, will you just leave?
Right.
Just leave. So I wish there was an easier answer to Mike for your question, but there really isn't. Just take a deep breath, try to avoid saying or doing something that could escalate it.
And that's a good point too, to remind people, John, that you just brought up, that the reality is you're not going to solve this in one night, and you're certainly not going to solve it with the stress, the added stress of dinner and holidays and all of this type of stuff that we bring on ourselves, because it's that time of it's the most wonderful time of the year, right?
Right.
But remembering and keeping in mind, look, this, if you want to have the conversation, it can be a great catalyst to say, you know what, after everything calms down, January 1st, let's go out for coffee. Let's try and build bridges. Let's try and have a quiet conversation about this, realizing that, in a lot of cases, it's our family. There's situations that have been boiling over for years. You're not going to, it'd be awesome if you could solve it, but you're probably not going to solve it in dinner time over Thanksgiving in one session.
No.
So
someone had another comment about the parking spot at the store and road raging. Just real quick, expect the other person to be a jerk. If you can allow yourself to already be expecting the other person to be a jerk, it won't be that much of a shock to your system when they do something stupid. You can just ignore it and drive away. Sure. I've seen it happen. This is actually a good point. You're pulling into a parking lot and never realizing someone else had their eye on it, and then you can get into a road rage incident, assuming you legitimately did not see that person over there trying to pull into it. That's Lord. Again, don't take things so personally. We're all in this together. It's a stressful year, and it's a stressful time of year now. The Detroit Lions are still losing for the. It's just a tough time, right? And setting those boundaries before you go. I don't want to talk about this. As a matter of fact, my neighbor was just telling me that at a recent family gathering, someone wanted to talk politics, and she goes, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. And she ended up having to excuse herself and walk away. You may have to do that. Take a deep breath and walk away to avoid the situation going sideways, because you're bound to go that way. She said her heart was racing and she was trembling. She had to get up and walk away. Don't take things personally, folks. Everyone's having a hard time. As long as you don't let that offense take root in your heart and your mind, it's bound to, you're bound to stay in control of yourself if you don't take offense and you keep you from saying or doing something that could escalate the situation or make things that much more uncomfortable at a family gathering.
Absolutely. Well, and again, that's about as much time as we have for this week. So as always, thanks for coming on, John, and joining us. And if you have any interest in de-escalation training for your team, which is always a great thing, we did post John's website, so definitely check that out and reach out to him. And he actually, if you have the opportunity to, you can go on and check out his Facebook page and Twitter as well, because a lot of times through the week, what I find helpful is he'll do like a 2 or 3 minute video on, on a news clip that just happened. And it's like, hey, this stuff is happening all the time. So I love the fact that you do that, and you always give kind of a narrative of, okay, how can we peel this apart and maybe do it better, or not make the same.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Definitely check that out. And like I said, we always appreciate you coming on. So other than that, it's been a pretty quiet evening. Yes. We did not actually have Paul on tonight. Paul got tied up in a church ministry, and so he couldn't make it at the last minute. He was out of town. And so next week, we're actually going to be talking about handling civil unrest. And that's actually going to be with Simon from Worship Security Association. He's going to come on, and that will actually be Mike and Paul. I will actually be out of town. So, but I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. So as always, please feel free to reach out to either of our ministries. You can always visit us at churchsafetyguys.com. And you guys have a very blessed week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Good night.
Thank you for joining the Church Safety Guys broadcast. We hope that you found it informative, and we appreciate your feedback. Looking for ways you can help us reach more churches? Share our broadcast with your teams. Consider becoming a monthly ministry partner. Like and share our page, and join the discussion in our Facebook groups. Visit our website at churchsafetyguys.com for other great resources. Remember to keep a servant's heart, a mindset of ministry, and Semper Disciplina. Always be training. Have a blessed week.